Bhaskar, for that glowing introduction. Hello, everyone, and hopefully you might have seen the previous one we did, where we talked about supercharging your Word templates with content controls. If not, the recording is available on Bhaskar's site, so you can go back and look at that. This is the follow-on from this, and we're going to talk about building blocks. So let's come over here. Okay, what are the benefits of building blocks? A building block allows you to insert predefined content into your document with just a couple of mouse clicks. Fold outs, section dividers, that kind of thing. Maybe it's a product or a solution description. It could be a sales signatures. You know, you've got a bunch of different sales guys. Which one do you want to put in there? Different terms and conditions if you're doing commercial proposals. Could be different cover art that you always want to use. Could be some icons that you want to put in there just to emphasize the content. And you know, the reason I mentioned the previous one is that at the end of this session, halfway through, we're going to move into how we can combine content controls and building blocks to allow people to select content from a easy for me to say, a predefined list. It's very early here in the morning in California, so I've only just started on coffee, so forgive me. Okay, so great, eh? Lots of things that we can do with this, and we'll show most of these through the presentation. So what is a building block? A building block is a reusable piece of content. It can be any combination of text and graphics. So pretty much if you can create it in a Word document, you can grab it and you can create a building block from it and then be able to insert that building block at any time you want later on. Now, they're also known as quick parts. In fact, if you go into Word and go insert menu on the right-hand side, you'll see it says quick parts. Building blocks are really the, if you like, the overall name for these things. And building blocks can be auto text, or they can be quick parts. And we'll, you know, we'll kind of talk about that as we go through. One thing that's important to note, very important to note, is that you cannot store building blocks in a Word document. They can only be stored in a template. And if you think about it, that's kind of reasonable. If I create, you know, 16 different pieces of boilerplate text or predefined text and graphics, do I want them to be in the document? No, I don't. I only want them to be in the template. And the way that Word works, because the document is attached to the template, when you insert it, it grabs it out of the template and brings it into the document. So your document only has in it the content you want. The template has everything in it available for you at the click of a button. Okay, it also, you'll find in Word that in fact, a lot of the things where you go insert something, actually those are building blocks. They're built-in building blocks, and we'll have a look at those on the next slide. So what are some of the built-in building blocks in Word? Bibliographies, I'm sure we've all used that. I've never used it. Cover pages, those are all building blocks. Equations are building blocks. Headers and footers, the ones that are predefined, building blocks. All your page numbers are building blocks. Tables of contents, predefined tables, even the text boxes and watermarks. These are all building blocks which are built into Word. Okay, so they're just the same as building blocks you can create. In fact, when you say create a custom watermark, for example, you're building a new building block. It's just that Word is kind of doing it for you. Okay. So we can create our own building blocks, and this is one of the most powerful things that we can do, and we'll show you how to do that today. So, for example, you could have a product technical description, and I've got some pages here from a template that I use at SMA, where we have various solutions, like a competitive assessment price to win, standard description of how we do that. We have, you know, other things that we have. So I can bring that in, and then because it's just Word content, I can then customize it for that specific proposal. Standard statements of work. So, you know, SMA is a proposal support, capture and proposal support company, and other things as well. But we have standard statements of work for like a proposal manager or a volume lead or a graphic artist. And so I can bring those in as building blocks. And then obviously terms and conditions. We have lots of different types of terms and conditions for fixed price or time and materials or whatever. And so those are standard building blocks that I can bring in to suit the particular proposal that I'm doing. So rather than having to go off and find the document that's got those in and then copy and paste, or particularly for product descriptions, thinking to myself, oh my gosh, where was the last time I used that? You know, what's the most recent version of that? That's the one I want to use. I've now got to dig through all my old proposals and find it. You don't have to do that. You can just click a button, and there it is. Okay. Custom building blocks, we can organize them in galleries. So galleries allows us to segregate our building blocks into different sections that can make it easier for us to manage. Of course, we have auto text. We've talked about that. Auto text actually goes way, 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 way back to some of the earliest versions of Word. There was the ability to basically save some keystrokes. And in fact, in very early versions of Word, it used to be called the spike. So if you imagine those old, you know, 1950s offices where they had literally a bunch of guys working and ladies working on with you know, calculating machines to do the expenses and invoices and things. And you know, when they got a bill, they do it and then they put it on a spike to save it, literally a spike on the desk. So that's what it was originally called, the spike. It's now auto text. It's a lot more flexible. It's just a type of building block. We also have quick parts. We mentioned those earlier, and these are basically all the same. It's just that what Word has done is to segregate them into these categories that allow you to organize your parts. You can have custom 1, custom 2, custom 3, custom 4, custom 5. We have custom auto text and custom quick parts. The advantage of the custom ones is they're actually hidden from the user interface. So you won't see those if you go insert quick parts. You won't see anything that's in the custom categories. You'll only see the ones that are in auto text or quick parts. You're thinking to yourself, well, how is that useful? Well, when we get to using content controls, I'll show you how those are going to be useful. Within a custom building block gallery, I can now create categories within that. So for example, under quick parts, I can have category, any category. I've shown 7 here, but it doesn't really matter. So I could have, for example, a category called cover images. I could have one called icons. I could have one called terms and conditions, whatever. So I can, again, subdivide my galleries into these different categories. So I've got lots of ways of organizing all my little pieces of text. That's the important message that you take away here. Okay. Now we're going to have a look at the building blocks organizer. This is the one dialogue in Word that allows you to see all the building blocks you've got available. So here it is, the building blocks organizer. You just go to insert quick parts and you'll see it's at the bottom of the list. Okay, and it shows all the building blocks in all of the templates that are attached to your document. So when we open up a Word document, you know, it's attached. You can see all the built-in ones. You can see those here. You can see any building blocks that are in the template attached to that document, and any building blocks that are in what's called a common building block file. And I'll talk more about that later. So every document can see the building blocks associated with its template and the building blocks associated that come with Word and any other common building block file. And that's an important point, and I'll touch on that later. The problem with this particular dialogue is it is the only way to see all of the building blocks that are available to this document. And you can't resize it. So you can't grab the corner and stretch it and make it bigger. This is as good as it gets. It is an absolutely awful difficult dialogue to use because you're constantly changing the width of the little columns there on the left and searching and sorting and whatever. And it's just awful. It really is awful. But it's a necessary tool that you need to use to be able to manage the building blocks that are available, particularly when you're creating the building block files. Once you're in use, you don't really need to worry about it. So where do building blocks live? So the one that comes with Word, so all the ones I showed earlier, the text boxes, the cover images, the page numbers, all that stuff, they all live in a file called built-in building blocks.x. You'll see it's a .x, which means it's a template. Okay. Your custom building blocks, the ones that you create, are either going to live in a file called building blocks.x. So if you just create a building block and it's not in a particular template, you just say, well, I'll create this building block and use it every time I want to use it, then it's going to be in that building blocks.x file. And these files are all hidden away in the file system, and we'll talk about where they actually live later. But these are the files they live in. It could be in the proposal template. So, for example, a lot of the templates that I create for both SMA and my Wordman Speaks clients, those templates are smart. They have building blocks in them. They might have VBA code in them, aka macros, which help do things. And so that's where they would live. And whenever you create a document based on a template, remember that the document has this sort of umbilical cord, if you like, back to the template. So it always knows who its template is, and the things like macros and building blocks that are in the template are available to that document through that sort of magical connection. Obviously, if you have macros in your proposal template, it'll be a .m file as opposed to a .x file. .x files can't contain macros. You could also, of course, have put it in normal dot. Okay, so they can also live in there as well, which is, normal. Remember, that is the common template that if you just go into Word and say, create a new document, blank document, it's going to be based on your normal .x or .m template. Okay, that's where all your normal styles come from. All right, let's talk about an example. So we're going to look at a fold out. And for those of you that have used fold outs, whether it's a tabloid size for us here in the US, or if you're elsewhere in the world, you're using an A3 fold out in the middle of an A4 document because you've got a really big graphic or an architectural diagram or some such thing that you need to put in your proposal. We know that creating those is a bit of a nuisance. You've got to put in section breaks and disconnect headers and footers and rotate margins and all that kind of thing. And that takes a while to do. So wouldn't it be really cool if we could create a building block that would allow us to insert a fold out with one click? So let's talk about how we can do that. So you're going to open your proposal template for editing. Remember this, you're not opening in the document, you're going to open up your template. So you might need to right click on it in your file system and say open, because if you double click on it, it'll just create a new document based on that template. So remember to do that. And for those of you that are running Windows 11, that's even more fun. Because even open will just create a new document based on the template. So there's a little trick to that, which we can talk about later. All right, let's move on. So here we are. Here's a standard document. And what I've done is I put in 2 section breaks next page. So basically what I've done is to create 3 sections in my document now. Okay, this is how we normally do it. I'm then going to disconnect the headers and footers in sections 2 and 3. So now what's happened is that each section has its own header and footer. And that's very important. Now we're going to resize that middle page in section 2 to be a tabloid or A4 if you're outside of the US. And we're going to change it to landscape. Remember, when you do that, the margins will rotate. So what was top, bottom, left, and right now becomes left and right, top and bottom. So, you know, if you didn't have 1 inch all round or whatever the equivalent is on a metric, you will have to go in and just check that your header and footer have the correct things. So once we've adjusted the header and footer width in section 2, we should have something like this. Okay, so now we have our 3 sections. Our middle section, section 2, is now our fold out. So what we're going to do now is we're going to select all of section 2, including the leading and trailing section breaks. It does help if you have the paragraph markers turned on, okay, which is your Control-Shift-8 or Control-Star or whatever you want to do, however you want to do it. And so that'll, you know, show you where the section breaks are. If not, this is going to be impossible. So make sure you include the leading and the trailing section breaks. So basically we've selected that. Now what we do is we're going to press Alt and F3 together. What that's going to do is bring up the Create New Building Block dialog. We're going to select the Quick Parts gallery. That's where we want it to go. We're going to create a new category. You can use your company name or whatever. You could say, you know, Wordman different sections or something, you know, if you have more than one or whatever the category could be. You can have multiple categories within Quick Parts. You can save it in your proposal template. If you don't, it will automatically get saved into your normal ... which will make it available to every document that you're editing. But of course, this fold out we've created is really only relevant to this particular template, right? Because it's got the right headers and footers. So in this case, we want to save it in our proposal template. This is called BB test, building block test. And we click OK. That's it. We can add a description if you want. The description will only show up in the building block organizer. I tend not to because I know what I'm doing. I know what my building blocks are for. But if I create them for clients, then I might add that in just for completeness. Okay. And then when I go to insert quick parts, now you can see there's the Wordman category and underneath is the fold out. So literally I click on that and pop, in it goes. Okay, in goes my fold out. Pretty simple. Just remember that Alt F3. Okay, that's it. That's all you got to do. It's pretty simple. But remember, it can only be saved in the template, not in the document. So now we have to think about, well, okay, now I've got this wonderful template with these building blocks in. How do I distribute them to the team? The obvious thing, the easiest thing to do is to get everybody to save the template in the same place. Okay. And if you want to be able to go File, New, and then see your template and say, I want to create a new proposal, here's all my proposal templates, and not have to try and remember where they all are. The place to save them is in this wonderful folder called Microsoft Templates. Now it lives in a place called App Data. So %appdata% is actually a shortcut that Windows knows. And what it's going to do is expand that shortcut into this full path. So it's in, you know, assuming it's your C drive, users, and then your username, app data roaming Microsoft templates. Don't ask me to explain the path and why Microsoft did this, but this is the way it is. Okay, so this path is where you would put all of your templates. They can be for Word, Excel, PowerPoint. This is where they go. And now the only thing you have to do is to tell Word where you put it. So what we're going to do is go back into Word and go to File, Options, and then hit Save. And then if you scroll down there, you'll see there's a box that says Default Personal Templates Location. By default, when you first run Word, this will be blank. But if you put there in that box, if you put in the full path, not the app data, but the full path, and then hit OK, Word now knows that you have some templates in that folder. Okay, so when you go to File, New, that's where those templates will be, and you'll see a link that says Personal, and then you'll be able to select that template. And if you change your template, the only thing you have to do is tell people, here's a new version of the template. Okay. You know, this is what we do at SMA. We don't do it very often. We only change our templates, the basic templates, every so often, just for a refresh, and that's about it. All right. I want to show you some other building block ideas. These are in templates that I've created for other people. We talked about icons. These are some icons. This is for a solar energy company. And they had these icons, and they wanted to be able to, for people to be able to insert them into the document, just to highlight, it's a commercial proposal. It's going to look attractive and readable and exciting to look at. So here are some of the icons. They had several dozen icons that we added in as building blocks. So these are all in the quick parts gallery, and this is a category called SunPower icons. So, you know, different ones there. And depending on how you set up the content before you make it a building block, that's how it'll come in. So in this case, for example, these are probably PNG icons, if I remember correctly, PNG images, and they are set to be floating, to have the text wrap around them, and they're going to be left flush to the paragraph and whatever. So you set all that up, all those properties up before you actually create the building block, and that's how the building block will come into your document. They also had a number of different cover images of different solar panel installations, and the sales leads could pick a particular cover image and pop it into the cover page. Okay, so that way, you know, they again don't have to find the image. Everything's correctly sized. All these were JPEGs that were set up to be 150 pixels per inch, which is really the minimum. And they were all correctly sized, so when they inserted them, they went into the cover page and they look great. So all you're doing here is just saving time, saving a lot of time. This is the one that we have in the SMA templates. We have some things in here. Sometimes we have cover letters in the document, sometimes we don't. So for example, we have a thing called what we call a term of reference, which is really just a statement of work and a budgetary estimate. That may evolve into a full proposal, in which case now I want to put a cover letter back in. So I created a cover letter building block to make it nice and easy. It is a landscape 3-column template. So, you know, we want to have different, to put graphics in, we've basically got to have a text box to hold the graphics. So again, those are building blocks that I can pick. Okay, just some ideas there. Here's some more. This is one for a medical education company, Medscape, which is part of WebMD, and I've done some very complex templates for them. And there's basically big fill-in forms. So these are actually building blocks that have lots of content controls inside them to allow people to pop one in and then start filling it out. Okay. And then here's one I've just finished for an insurance company. These are all basically, you know, insurance descriptions, if you like, of different terms and things. And again, they can pop these in anytime they want. So just some ideas there for some of the building blocks that you could create. So think about your own templates, your own proposals. What are the things that I use all the time? You know, what building blocks could I create to make my life easier as we go forward? Okay, so that is building blocks essentially. So you create the piece of text you want to use, you do your Alt F3, save it in your template, organize it however you want in the different categories and galleries and things. And there you go, pretty simple. Distribute it to your team. Everybody can go insert, quick part, boop, there they are. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about some better ideas that we can do. And this is where we're now going to overlap with the previous presentation on using content controls. So we can use content controls to allow us to select building blocks from a specific gallery and category in our building blocks in the template. So this sounds complicated. If it sounds complicated, it is a little, but it's actually not that hard once you get into it. So let's look at the better idea. What if we had multiple templates with common building blocks? So for example, at SMA, we have a US letter template, which is what we use most of the time. And we have an A4 template, which we use when we're bidding to international clients. We also have portrait and landscape versions of those. So we actually have 4 different templates. But they all kind of look the same. They have the same styles in them. They have the same headers and footers, but obviously the page size is different. The orientation is different, but the requirements for the content are very much the same. We have multiple different commercial terms applicable to both, or all 4 templates. So like I mentioned earlier, we have time and materials, we have firm fixed price, we have a firm fixed price level of effort, we have government special ones, we have one for training, all that kind of stuff. Now we can make a common building block file and we're going to save it in that very specific location. So that's back in our app data again. And instead of templates, now we're going to put it in a folder called document building blocks. Okay, and if we put it in there, then these building blocks will be available to every single document we are editing. But we're going to make sure that they're kind of hidden away so that people don't get confused and would start using them in something that they're not meant to use them in. Common building block file, it's just a Word template, but all it has in it is building blocks. It will be available to any document you're editing, just like Word's built-in building blocks. But we can hide them in that custom gallery, and then we use the content control so we can access them easily. Okay, this will all become clear in a minute. So we're going to create our common building block file. Common terms, for example, this is for my thing. And in here, I'm going to put in all of the different terms and conditions, all the different types that I have. And then what I can do is to save each one as a building block. So you'll see here I have 1, 2, 3, 4 different sets of terms and conditions. Okay, I'm going to save each of those as a building block, but I'm going to put it in the custom quick parts gallery, not in the quick parts gallery. And I'll create a new category called, for example, terms. By putting it in the custom quick parts gallery, if I go to insert quick parts, I won't see it. It'll be hidden away. Okay, but we can access it through a content control. And then we're going to save that as our new common building block file, common terms.docx. Remember, it has to be saved as a template. Okay, all right. So remember content controls from the last one? They were great for making fill-in forms, and there were standard types were all of these. Okay, we had rich text, plain text, we had a picture, checkbox, combo box, drop down, date picker, repeating section, and this magic one, the building block gallery. That is the one that I want to concentrate on for this exercise. So how do we insert a content control? We go to the developer tab in the ribbon and hit controls and insert the one you want. If you don't have the developer tab, you're going to go to file options, customize ribbon, and then make sure that the developer tab is checked. It's not by default. Now, when you then go to the developer tab, you'll see there is a controls group. And then on the left-hand side, you can see all of the content controls that you want to be able to use. Okay, so how do we access building blocks with the content control? So back to this scenario, we're going to go to our proposal template. So what have we done? We've created this common building block .docx common building block file, which got all of our terms and conditions in it. We've saved it in our App Data Microsoft document block, building blocks folder. And so it's available to all of the documents we're working on. So now we're going to go back and open up our proposal template. Okay, and we're going to put the cursor where we want people to be able to insert the terms. Might be a very specific section of the proposal. Okay, so here, for example, I've just put in a heading 1, terms and conditions. Okay, and underneath that, I'm going to go to developer controls and insert a building block gallery content control. Okay, and this is how it comes in by default. It says choose a building block. Now what we're going to do is click on properties in the controls group on the developer tab. Okay, and we can now put in some names for this. We can give it a title. We can call it terms. Okay, we can select the gallery and category of where we put our things. So if you remember, we put all of our terms in the custom quick parts gallery, and we gave them the category terms. And obviously these will, the terms category will be available in the drop down once you have saved that common building block file in the specific folder. If you didn't put it there, then it won't be available. So you need to do that first, and then click on OK. So that's how it's going to look now. We can click on design mode, which allows us to change the so-called ghost text, choose a building block in the middle. And we can change that to say select terms. And then that's what it looks like. So isn't that cool, right? That's how it looks in the document. When somebody comes in to use they've created a document based on this template, and they come in and there's a drop down associated with that select terms, and that is what you see. So there's all our terms. We select the one we want. And what happens is now Word reaches back into the common building block file, grabs all that content and pops it straight into your proposal. So that's that. If, for example, you didn't want to use one of the building blocks because you had perhaps very specific terms, maybe you've got a master services agreement with that client, you've already decided on terms, and you want to just reference a master services agreement or some similar overarching document, then you can right click on the content control and say remove content control, and then it's just, that's it, it just disappears. And then you can obviously paste in any custom terms you want. So you're not trapped into having to use one of these. You can just say remove the content control, and I'll just put in my own terms and conditions. Okay. Question from Kathy: if you have to modify the content, do you just create another building block? Well, not correct. What I do is, and obviously some of the clients I have, this happens all the time. We do change the building blocks from time to time. So in that case, I modify the common building block file. So I keep a copy of it, open it up. I will insert the building block into the document, the common building block file. Remember, it's just a template, right? So I open it up as a template. I can put the content in, I'll modify it, and then I'll hit Alt F3 and save it back as a modified building block. You know you've done it correctly when Word says, do you want to modify the contents of this building block? And you go, yes, I do. If it didn't do that, then you didn't get it all right. So there is a little bit of maintenance involved in that. Generally, I've found that with most, certainly with SMA, we very rarely change it. We've got our terms and conditions nailed down pretty much. We have sales signatures that are selectable on the cover letter from one of these building block content controls. If we have a new sales lead join or somebody leaves, then I will modify the file to add or remove that signature. I have had other clients where actually recently, you know, they've said, oh, can we modify, we've changed some of our standard descriptions, can we change that? So again, I modify the building blocks in the template and that they're done. You know, yeah, you can create another building block, but that's easy, but you know, there'll always be, if it's changing the existing one and you only want people to use that new one, then it's easy just to modify the existing building block. Very straightforward. Just requires a little care. That's all I will say. Just be aware of what you're doing and what you're saving. And if you're modifying a building block and Word doesn't warn you that you're modifying a building block when you try and save it, then you probably got the name wrong, or you're putting it in the wrong gallery or in the wrong category. Okay, so just remember that. Okay, so let's look at the situation we have now. So for example, where do all things come from? So we have a common building block file, which has our terms and conditions in, it has the sales signatures. And that is the one you'll see on the right-hand side at the top. It says common building blocks .x file, okay? We have two templates. We have our portrait template and our landscape template, or our A4 and our US letter, or whatever it may be. Those actually have macros in as well, so those are .m files. And so if I'm working on, say, the landscape document, which is in the middle at the bottom, I can get building blocks and macros from the template associated with the landscape document, which is the one directly above it. But I can also get building blocks from that common building blocks file, which is in the red line. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And so to access the ones in the common building blocks file, generally I'm going to be using a content control because I've kind of hidden those away because I don't want every single document to have access to those. You can get to it from the building block organizer, but it's, you know, that's a little tricky. Okay, so there's a lot of power to this, and I can't show you every single possible thing that you can do with building blocks and content controls. Some of my clients have given me some serious challenges as to things they want to be able to do, but generally with content controls and building blocks, and maybe in some cases some macros, I've been able to accomplish what they want. And you can make life very easy for yourself in terms of going and grabbing, you know, predefined content. You can actually build quite a reasonable little content management system. So, you know, obviously, if you're doing a lot of those Q&A type proposals where your clients are asking you, customers are asking you questions, and you're going and getting standard content to answer them, then perhaps you need some sort of content management system. And we all know that through APMP, there are a lot of companies out there that are offering that kind of thing, integrated to Word or whatever. So, you know, feel free to go that route. But on the other hand, if you just want something simple, you've got a few things like different terms or sales signatures or some, you know, specific solutions, and you want to be able to just quickly insert those into a proposal without having to rummage through your file system or SharePoint or whatever to find the last time you used that thing, then building blocks are the answer. Okay, and you can very easily create a common building block file, or you can create building blocks in your proposal templates. And, you know, by using that App Data Microsoft templates, App Data Microsoft building blocks locations, you can very easily distribute those to your team. You don't have to make that hard. Okay, everybody can find those locations on their PC. Okay, now there are equivalent locations on the Mac. Don't ask me what they are because I don't know. I don't have a Mac, but you know, I've found that most people working on proposals tend to be using PCs, and clearly that's what we are. Okay. So we have about 15 minutes left, and I just want to go through one more step just to show you the possibilities that you can do here. And I'll just like I did with the previous presentation, this is my let's get technical. And I love this cartoon from Gary Larson. It's from '82, and it's the mosquito that's bitten into the artery and obviously is filling up quicker than it anticipated. And this is a little bit like getting technical, okay? So Word is a very complex program. It looks very simple to use, but once you get into using it, there are some pretty cool things you can do. And one of the things we're going to do is look at creating a custom ribbon where we can put our building blocks. So this is advanced. You'll need knowledge of VBA. You'll need to know how the Word object model works. You'll need how to understand how to create ribbons using extensible markup language on the ribbon. Now your template, once we start adding macros, is now going to be a .m, not a .x. Remember what I said, you can't store macros in a .x template. You'll see here that I've created a code module in the VBA editor. And then we can add code to insert a building block. So that's what that looks like. For example, here it says insert one column artwork. That's going to be our piece of code, and it's going to call the active document attach template. So I'm in my document now. Go and access the template associated with this document, and go and get this very specific building block entry called half width artwork. And then insert it. Where do I want to insert it? Selection.range, which is basically where I have my cursor, and bring it in as rich text. So whenever I run that macro, run that piece of code, what that's going to do is go and get that building block out of the template and insert it wherever my cursor is in the document. It's pretty much all it does. However, that's not very useful. So what we want to be able to do is to put that on a ribbon. And to do that, we're going to create a custom ribbon code. This is what custom ribbon code looks like. I know your eyes are glazing over at this point, but I do this all the time, so it makes sense to me. But this is what the ribbon code looks like. When you've done all of that, that's what you end up with. You create a custom ribbon, and you'll see here that this is the one associated with the SMA templates. And on the left-hand side there, half width, full width, pull quote. Those are building blocks that are easy to put into the document. So rather than going fishing around in insert quick parts and finding the one you want, in this case, we just put them on the ribbon, and somebody goes to the SMA ribbon tab and clicks on that, and in they come. And that's, at least there are tools available to help you build the custom XML ribbon code, but you know, it's pretty straightforward once you know how to do it. But I just wanted to show you the possibilities to customizing your templates. And obviously, whenever you open a document based on this template, then the ribbon appears. It will not appear if you're opening a document not based on the template. Okay, so that's pretty much how that works. And obviously, we have other tools on there that I've written code for to do true title case and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So anyway, those are some of the things that you can do. So what did we learn, Palmer? This is from a brilliant movie called Burn After Reading. Very funny film. So what did we learn? We learned how to create building blocks to save us time. Things like a fold out or cover art or icons. You know, all these things, if I have to go and look for the file in, you know, piece of content that's in a previous proposal, I've got to go and find that. If doing a fold out, there's like 30 steps to doing that. Wouldn't it be nice to do it in one click? If I'm looking for icons, I've got to go and find the folder where the icons are and insert them and move them around and align them and change the margins and all that kind of malarkey. Wouldn't it be great if I just do it with one click and in it comes? Okay, that's what I can do with building blocks. Save yourself a lot of time, get a lot of repeatability, you know, whatever. So yes, and here's a comment and the thing, too much information to sink in. I understand. The the technical side of it, that really was just a teaser. We could have a whole lesson on how to create custom ribbon tabs. Maybe one day we'll do that, Bhaskar. But it's very, very technical. But once you've done it, you can sit back and be very proud of what you've achieved. What else did we learn today? We learned how to combine building blocks with content controls to allow users to select predefined content. So if we have predefined terms and conditions, and we only want one in our proposal document, then we can use the content control, the building block gallery content control, to point at all the available different types of terms and conditions. The user picks one and it grabs it out of that common building block file or out of the proposal template and pops it into the document. Okay. And so we leave you with the final question is, what will you use building blocks and content controls for? You have a almost infinite world of possibilities here. So at this point, I will take any questions. You're probably all stunned at this point, but we have 9 minutes left, and I know Bhaskar wants to run his little quiz as well. So, and I have a meeting at 8 o'clock here in California, which I have to go to. So and we have a few minutes left. If there's anybody got any questions, if you're not all sitting there with your eyes glazed over, please feel free to ask in the chat. Otherwise, I'll hand it back to Bhaskar.
Thank you, Dick. I think this is Dick at 6:30 in the morning. Imagine you sit next to Dick like 10 a.m. in the morning in an APMP conference. It's the best. It's the best that you could get, the limitless, how Word can use you for everything. So again, a question from Lauren. Does your template start with a blank page? Dick?
It depends on what you mean by that, Lauren. Most of the so my SMA proposal template actually has in it a lot of predefined stuff. So when I create a new document based on that template, I get a cover page, I get a cover letter, and then I get the body of the document with the main headings. We always have a sort of a background or introduction, statement of work, that sort of thing. So I basically pre-populate the template with the information that I want to appear when I create a new document based on that template. Okay, so yeah, so what happens is with with the documents, you talk about cover page insertion. What happens with the documents, as I said, that we assume that we're going to make a full proposal, but there are situations where, certainly at least at SMA, and you may have equivalent procedures, but we don't submit a full proposal to a client. We only submit them basically a statement of work and a budgetary estimate, and this is really just a discussion document. Obviously then the sales leads and the technical guys will talk with the client, maybe amend the statement of work and come up with a new price, and then I need to create a full proposal based on that amended statement of work. So when we submit that statement of work initially, we don't have a cover letter, we don't have a lot of the terms and conditions and ground rules and all that kind of stuff. So it's very much a slimmed down document, same template, but a lot less content. So at the point where I need to transition from that terms of reference into a proposal, I now need to reinsert the things that I took out in the first place. So you got it. That's why I created the cover letter as a building block, so I can just literally pop it straight back into the document and not have to go and open a new document and copy and paste text and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to make my life easy.
Perfect. Thank you, Dick. As you said, you have your meeting at 8 o'clock again. I know if you are used to Dick's Wordman workshops, you will know how technical this gets. But again, if you're new to Dick's session, yeah, this could be overwhelming. But either way, the recording is available. The previous recording is available. Please do rewatch as many times as possible, and try to use Word at least to 1% that it can do for you. Most of the time, like people like me, we can't be Wordman, but I try to be a Word toddler, but I'm still not. but I leave you.
That's an image I didn't really need, actually.
Exactly. So let's go back and start the scribble quest again. Get closer. Yes, I understand this is technical one, but let's just go closer. Building blocks are also known as what or what? Building blocks are also known as what or what? Okay, Lauren picked the first word. What's the other word? Quick pause, that's right. So it's quick pause or auto text, that's good. So there are two word formats. One is the word templates that Dick talked about, that you could only save it in as a word template. Which format can accept macros? .m, yeah, correct. .x can't accept macros. So .m is the answer, but well done, good try.
.m is correct. Lauren is correct as well, because a .m is a document with macros. So anything that ends with an M is correct.
Correct. That's it. Yes. So what's the kind of the button that we use to save a word, save a template, not a document, the building block template? What's the button? Because you said it's overwhelming, man, but you have been listening so intensely, which is good. Alt F3, that's right. So final question. How do you get access to the developer control if you don't have? You need to check which part. You need to get access to developer control, but you need to go file options and you need to check a certain part. Which one is that? Yeah, otherwise you can't do anything what Dick said. Yes, customize ribbon, Donna. Yes, we have another winner. Perfect. Yes, that's it. Again, yeah, it's very, very technical. And again, that's what Dick is for. You know what, I have seen SMH template that Dick has created because I used to work with Dick before, and I'm still working with Dick. You know what, it's unbelievable. You can't imagine how easy it is when you need to do a proposal. You know what, because everything is pretty much automated. You know, it's like, and automation is all done through Word. So please do watch this, watch the previous things, and please do get in touch with Dick and then see anything and everything, and then he would like to help you with that. So that's the end of today's Office Hours webinar. As you know, a recording will be available for you and the slides will be shared to you. Please do reach out to Wordman, as we call it, friendly Dick. And next week, we have Build Better Bids Using the Superpower of Story with Michael Gunner. So as you know, every month we try to go with different geographies. So we are moving from South Africa last week to US, and next week we'll be in Ireland, and we'll be back with US again with Ali Peskin, and then we'll be moving back to Italy with Rossella. So we'll try to mix it up so that you get the inputs, not just from the industry leaders, but also with first-time speakers. So in that way, you get the best of what the legends do, which we always look for, and also what the, like the young professionals or the people who have entered the industry. It's also an opportunity for them to come and share to the others to get used to this. So if you are interested, please do drop us a line. But otherwise, I'll see you next week. Thank you so much, Dick, as always. That gives you 1 minute to run to your next meeting. Please do pass your wishes to Dick and Lincoln, because not very often. And he woke up 6 o'clock or even 5:30 to present this session.
Oh, I was up at 5, buddy. I was wide awake. Thank you for having me, Bhaskar. Thanks everybody for attending.
Take care. Thanks all.